Hello everyone. Welcome back to Ace Wisdom. You thought you had all the time in the world to get your avoidant ex back. After all, they seemed to be perfectly fine walking away, right? You held on to the belief that eventually they'd see your worth, that their defenses would crumble, and they'd come running back. But here's the truth that no one wants to admit. The moment you let go was the moment everything changed. They never thought you would do it. They never thought you'd stop chasing, stop calling, stop showing up. They thought you'd always be there, waiting, longing, reaching out, because that's what they'd trained you to do. But now you've shattered their comfort zone, and deep down they're starting to realize something they weren't ready for. You've moved on. You're no longer their fallback, their emotional safety net. You've become unavailable, and that's exactly what makes them panic. That's when they start to question everything. They never expected it, but now they're feeling something they never anticipated. They're feeling the weight of regret, and it's starting to sink in. They thought they had all the time in the world to take you for granted, to keep you in limbo, to avoid commitment. But the moment you truly let go, the moment you stopped letting them take up space in your life, it triggered something they can't ignore. Their denial is crumbling, and so is the illusion they had of your unwavering presence. I want to take a moment to thank everyone who's been with us through Volume 4, Episode 1 and 2. Your engagement, your comments, your support, it honestly means the world. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of the upcoming episodes. This journey is about empowerment, clarity, and understanding. And trust me, you won't want to miss the next parts. Now let's dive in, because the truth about your avoidant ex's reaction to your absence will reveal something powerful. It's not just about them losing you. It's about them realizing they never had you in the first place. Think about this for a second. When you're always available, you're essentially telling them they don't have to do the hard work of earning your attention, your respect, your love. But when you stop giving them that, when you stop being the one they can always count on to come running back, they feel the void. That emptiness you left behind is like a mirror that reflects all their missed opportunities. They see themselves in it, and they don't like what they see. And here's the thing, they'll never admit it, but it eats away at them. This is when the self-doubt creeps in. This is when they wonder why they let someone like you slip away. And here's the kicker. Once they start thinking this way, they begin to obsess. They watch your social media. They ask about you through mutual friends. They replay everything that went wrong in their head. But the more they obsess, the clearer it becomes. They know they've messed up. They know they took you for granted. This is exactly what they never expected. They thought you'd always be there. They thought they could come and go as they pleased, controlling the pace, pulling away when things got too real, and retreating when emotions were too intense. But now the silence from your end is deafening. The distance you've created has made them question everything they believe to be true. And it's not just about your absence, it's about what your absence says about them. They no longer have you to fall back on, and that realization stings. It's a wake-up call they weren't prepared for. And now, they're left in a panic, wondering if they've lost you for good. Before we go any further, I want you to take a moment and comment below. I'm no longer waiting. I'm becoming. This isn't about them. This is about you. You're stepping into your power, and it's time to declare that to the world. Now, I know the journey hasn't been easy. There have been moments of doubt, frustration, and heartache. But trust me when I say this. The moment you decided to stop chasing them is the moment you unlocked your true potential. You stopped running in circles, hoping for validation from someone who couldn't give it to you. Instead, you chose to heal, to grow, to evolve. And that's when the real magic happens. Because the longer you remain unavailable, the more you're setting yourself apart from the people who just want to keep you stuck in their drama. You're leveling up. You're making yourself a priority. You're creating boundaries. And it's that magnetic energy that makes them regret their choices. The pain of losing you doesn't hit them all at once. It's a slow burn, and it's something they won't admit until they're face to face with the truth. They thought they'd never see the day when you'd let go. They thought they had all the time in the world. But now they're scrambling, and they don't know how to handle it. You've created a space where they no longer hold power over you. And that's the real revolution. If this resonates with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Let's keep this conversation going. Join our channel membership for more exclusive content designed to help you heal, grow, and reclaim your power. Because the longer you stay silent, the more you become their biggest regret. Let's dive deeper into what happens next, how your avoidant ex starts to panic, and why that panic will only fuel your transformation. Stay with me. Stay focused. Key point 1, the comfort of familiarity versus the reality of losing you. The first thing your avoidant ex felt when you started pulling away wasn't love. It was discomfort. Familiarity has a unique power. For them, the emotional distance they kept wasn't just a defense mechanism. It was a way of maintaining control, of keeping you at arm's length while still knowing that you would always be there, waiting. You were a constant, an anchor they could rely on without ever needing to invest deeply in the relationship. They knew exactly what to expect from you, and honestly, that made them feel safe. Safe enough to avoid commitment, safe enough to keep you emotionally at a distance, and safe enough to keep their independence intact while you remained emotionally entangled. But the moment you stopped being available, the moment you stopped chasing them, stopped reaching out, stopped trying to make things work, it created a void they didn't know how to fill. In the beginning, they might have even been a bit relieved, thinking that they could continue as they always had, unaffected by your absence. But deep down, there was an undercurrent of fear starting to brew. They thought you would always be there, no matter how much they pushed you away. And that's what you've just taken from them. The comfort of knowing that they could take you for granted, yet you'd still be available when they were ready. The reality is this: your absence made them realize just how much they depended on you. They had built their life around that familiarity, the pattern of you always being there when they wanted or needed it. And without you, things started to unravel. The things they once took for granted now felt like they were slipping through their fingers, and the anxiety began to creep in. No longer were they able to rely on you to just show up. They had to face the cold, harsh reality of what they'd lost. And it was no longer just about you. It was about the loss of control they had over the situation. You see, avoidants thrive on control. They avoid intimacy because it demands vulnerability, and they would rather keep things shallow than risk exposure. But when you stepped back and took away their emotional safety net, you forced them to confront something they had been avoiding. The risk of losing you, not just physically but emotionally. The loss of that connection is something they can't easily shake off, because for the first time, the power dynamic has shifted. It's no longer about them controlling the relationship from the shadows. Now, they are left wondering, Will they come back? Will they ever let me back in? Key point 2. The sudden realization of your value. One of the most powerful shifts that happens when you let go is the sudden and undeniable realization of your value. For the longest time, your avoidant ex may have taken you for granted, dismissing the depth of your feelings or the importance of your presence in their life. They might have rationalized your devotion as something that was always going to be there. But when you stop chasing, when you pull back your energy and focus on yourself, that's when they start to notice. You see, for avoidance, the act of pushing others away isn't always a reflection of their true feelings, but rather a defense mechanism designed to protect themselves from emotional vulnerability. They keep their distance because it's safer, more comfortable. But the irony is that by doing so, they never fully appreciate what they have until it's gone. Your absence forces them to confront the truth they were too scared to face before. You were everything they needed, but were too afraid to let in. This shift is often gradual, almost like a quiet awakening for them. At first, they might feel relief or even a sense of freedom, thinking that the distance is just temporary, that you'll eventually come back to them. But as time passes and the silence lingers, something starts to eat away at them. They start to realize how much space you once occupied in their life, the emotional energy, the care, the stability. In short, they begin to recognize that you were not just a convenience or a fallback, but someone who brought value to their existence. And that realization stings. It's not just the absence of your presence, it's the absence of your impact, the way you made them feel seen, heard, and valued, the way you added meaning to their life. It's no longer something they can dismiss. In fact, the longer they sit with this realization, the harder it becomes to ignore. They begin to reflect on all the things they never truly acknowledged before. The deep connection you shared, the sacrifices you made, the love you offered without reservation. What's happening now is critical. The longer they go without you, the more they understand that they weren't just losing a person. They were losing something far more precious. They lost the person who made them feel worthy, even when they didn't feel like they deserved it. They lost the person who was always there to support them, who saw through their walls and gave them a sense of security they couldn't find anywhere else. And now, with each passing day, that loss becomes more and more undeniable. In this moment of realization, they're forced to acknowledge something uncomfortable. They weren't able to recognize your value while they had you, and now they fear it might be too late to get you back. The power is shifting, and they're starting to see that they may have pushed you too far, taken you for granted for too long. And it's in that moment of clarity, when they truly understand what they lost, that the panic sets in. Because now they have to face the possibility that the door has closed, and they might never have the chance to walk through it again. Key point 3. The desperation sets. As the silence continues, the next phase in your avoidant ex's emotional journey is desperation. At first, they might have felt a sense of relief when you stopped chasing, believing that the absence of your presence would give them the freedom they craved. But now, as the days turn into weeks, the cracks in their emotional armor begin to show. The feeling of control they once held over the relationship starts to slip away, and they begin to experience an overwhelming sense of loss that they were never prepared for. They've convinced themselves for so long that they didn't need anyone, that they could go it alone without the burden of emotional vulnerability. But now that you're gone, that illusion starts to shatter. The cold truth becomes harder to ignore. They can't fill the void you left behind. They were so accustomed to having you around, so used to knowing that you would always be there when they decided they were ready for connection. But now? Now they're grappling with the realization that they might have let go of something irreplaceable. It's in this moment that the desperation starts to set in. They might try to keep busy with distractions, friends, work, hobbies, but none of it can fully replace the emotional connection they once had with you. And as they search for someone or something to fill the gap, they're left with a growing emptiness. It's not just the absence of you physically, but the absence of the emotional safety net you provided. The love, the care, the consistent support, all of it is gone. They now have to face a painful truth. No one else can offer them what you did. But here's the catch. Their desperation isn't rooted in a desire for love or reconnection. It's about control. For an avoidant, the fear of losing control is far greater than the fear of being alone. They're terrified of the idea that they might never get you back, that they might never have the power to control your presence in their life again. They need to know that they can still pull you back in, that they still have the ability to make you care. And as time goes on, they'll begin to check in on you to see if you're moving on, to gauge whether or not they still have a chance to regain control over the relationship. But here's the thing. Their desperation will only make them more anxious, more uncertain, and more unpredictable. They'll hover on the fringes of your life, trying to stay connected in subtle ways, liking your posts, asking about you through mutual friends, maybe even sending a random message or reaching out to check in. It's all part of their fear-driven strategy to see if you're still attached, still available, still in reach. What they won't tell you, though, is that this behavior is rooted in fear of losing you permanently. The more they see you thriving without them, the more that fear escalates. They're not used to the idea of you being the one who has the power. They've always been the ones to call the shots, to push you away when they needed space, to pull you back in when they were ready. But now that you've stopped playing their game, they're scrambling. Desperation is a toxic emotion, and for an avoidant, it's particularly dangerous. It's a sign that their self-defense mechanisms are breaking down, that their facade of indifference is crumbling. They thought they could control the relationship, but now they're struggling to maintain control over themselves. And that, my friend, is where the real power lies. In their panic, in their desperation to cling to something that's slipping through their fingers. Key point 4. The regret and self-reflection. As time passes, something powerful begins to happen within your avoidant ex. The desperation they feel starts to morph into something far deeper. Regret. This is the stage where they begin to realize the magnitude of their mistakes. And that regret is something they're not used to dealing with. Avoidants are experts at deflecting blame, deflecting emotions, and putting up walls. They are conditioned to avoid vulnerability at all costs. But once they feel the weight of losing you, the walls they built begin to crack. The realization of their own mistakes starts to weigh heavily on them. For the first time, they're forced to reflect on their behavior, their avoidance, their inability to commit. They may have always brushed off your needs, telling themselves that they didn't need to change, that their walls were necessary for their own protection. But now, those same walls are starting to feel like prison bars, locking them in with their own loneliness and regret. They begin to question everything, what they did wrong, why they pushed you away, and why they didn't value you when they had the chance. This internal conflict is far more painful than any external consequence. It's one thing to lose a person, but it's entirely different to realize that you were the one who pushed them away. The regret they're feeling is almost unbearable because now they're faced with the truth that they might never get the opportunity to make things right. But here's the kicker. They will never fully admit this regret to you. Avoidants have a way of burying their feelings, pretending they don't care, and rationalizing their behavior to protect themselves from facing the truth. Even if they're feeling regret, they'll never be upfront about it, because doing so would mean acknowledging their vulnerability, which goes against everything they've trained themselves to avoid. Instead, they'll likely mask their regret with actions that seem indifferent or even manipulative, checking in on you sporadically, trying to keep you in their orbit without truly engaging. It's their way of testing the waters, seeing if there's any chance to reignite the connection without fully exposing themselves. But the deeper truth here is that their regret will only grow stronger as they continue to watch you move on, heal, and reclaim your power. The longer they see you thriving without them, the more they'll realize what they've lost. They'll see your confidence, your growth, and they'll wonder how they could have been so blind. This is the moment where they realize that they didn't just lose someone, they lost their opportunity to be with someone truly exceptional. This is where your silence and your distance become the most powerful tools in your arsenal. Your absence forces them to face their own flaws, to confront the reality of their actions. They no longer have the option to sweep their mistakes under the rug or pretend that everything will be fine without you. They have to sit with their regret, and that's something they can't escape. In the end, their regret will be the catalyst for their growth, or the beginning of their self-sabotage. The question is, will they take responsibility for their actions, or will they keep running from the very emotions that could set them free? And even if they do recognize their mistakes, will it be too late to regain your trust, to rebuild what's been broken? Only time will tell, but one thing is certain. Once they start to feel that regret, the story has only just begun. The key point 5. The fear of losing you for good. As the regret sets in, and they come to terms with the consequences of their actions, your avoidant X enters the most paralyzing stage of all, the fear of losing you for good. This fear is different from the initial panic they felt when you stopped chasing them. It's deeper. It's not about losing someone they've been taking for granted. It's about the finality of the situation. The truth hits them like a ton of bricks. You're really gone. This is when the weight of their decisions comes crashing down, and they realize that they might never be able to get back to where they were with you. Avoidants are masters of emotional avoidance, but this stage is difficult to outrun. For the first time, they can't hide from the reality of what's happening. The comfort of knowing you were always there, waiting, is gone. The fantasy they built that you'd eventually come back to them because they never truly let you go is now shattered. There's no longer a safety net, no longer a fallback. They might have convinced themselves that they could walk away and find someone else, or that they could keep you at arm's length forever. But now they realize how fragile that position was. What's most terrifying for them is that they've crossed a line, a point of no return. The dynamic has changed. The more time you spend focusing on yourself and building your life without them, the less likely they are to ever have the same place in your life again. And this terrifies them. For someone with avoidant tendencies, losing control over a relationship is one of the greatest fears. But this fear isn't about vulnerability. It's about being replaced, about not being the one you turn to when you need comfort, love, or stability. They might start to make moves to regain your attention, subtle gestures to test whether they can still have a hold on you. They may reach out with random texts or comments, trying to spark any form of connection. But these attempts often come from a place of fear, not love. It's not about wanting to reconnect in a healthy way. It's about the desperation to know that they still have access to you, that they still matter to you. They don't want to face the reality that you may have truly moved on, and that your life is better without them. However, this fear of losing you for good isn't just about wanting to keep you around for their own comfort. It's also about them realizing that their fear of intimacy, their avoidance, and their inability to truly commit have ultimately led them to this point. It's a reckoning. The longer they delay facing their own issues, the harder it becomes to repair the damage. And with every passing day, they grow more aware of the cold, painful truth. If they don't act soon, they might never get the chance to have you back. This stage is critical because it forces them to face themselves. They can no longer blame you for the relationship's collapse. They can no longer hide behind their walls. They have to confront their own emotional shortcomings, and for some, that's the hardest pill to swallow. It's not just about the fear of losing you. It's about the realization that they lost the person they most needed to be with because they couldn't get out of their own way. They'll look back at their actions, the walls they built, and the distance they kept, and ask themselves, was it worth it? The fear of losing you for good will drive them to make decisions they weren't prepared to make before. Whether they choose to act on it or not, the fact that they're facing this fear is a pivotal moment. For the first time, they have no one to blame but themselves. And that realization, no matter how painful, will force them to make a choice. Will they finally break down their walls and open up, or will they continue to run from what they truly want? A key point 6, the moment of truth. Do they act, or do they let you go forever? The final stage in your avoidant ex's emotional roller coaster is a crucial one, the moment of truth. By now they've experienced all the feelings: discomfort, desperation, regret, and fear. And now, they're standing at the crossroads. They know what they've lost. They've seen what's slipping through their fingers. The question is, will they finally act on their feelings, or will they let you go forever? At this point, the ball is in their court. The emotional weight of everything they've experienced, of pushing you away, of taking you for granted, of avoiding intimacy, has been building up. They've had time to reflect on their actions and their role in the breakdown of the relationship. They've felt the sting of loss, and they're fully aware of the consequences. What happens now depends on whether or not they are willing to confront their fear of vulnerability. For an avoidant, the idea of opening up, of becoming emotionally available, is terrifying. It goes against everything they've built up as their protective walls. The act of truly connecting requires them to let down their defenses, to risk rejection, and to face the very emotions they've spent so long avoiding. So when they reach this moment, there's an internal battle between their desire for connection and their fear of getting hurt again. It's a battle that has the potential to change everything. Either they'll decide to let their guard down and make an effort to rebuild the connection, or they'll stay entrenched in their avoidance and walk away from the possibility of a real, meaningful relationship. But here's the thing. The longer they wait, the more they risk losing you for good. Avoidants often wait until the last possible moment, thinking they can still control the situation. But the reality is, their indecision only fuels your detachment. They've already seen the consequences of their actions, and every day they don't act, they solidify your belief that you deserve more than what they were offering. Every day they stay silent, they push you further away. And in doing so, they make it harder for themselves to ever get back to where they were with you. You see, this moment of truth isn't just about whether they'll reach out. It's about whether they're willing to be vulnerable. Vulnerability is the key to any meaningful relationship, but it's something an avoidant struggles with intensely. The risk of being open, of exposing their true feelings, of facing their fears. It's all too much for them to bear. But if they ever want to get you back, they'll need to find the courage to break down those walls. They'll need to prove that they can be emotionally available, and that they're willing to take the steps necessary to make things work. If they fail to act, however, they risk losing you forever. The longer they wait, the less likely they are to ever get back into your life in a meaningful way. They've already pushed you to the edge, and if they don't make a move soon, that's where you'll stay. You're no longer the person who will chase after them, who will forgive their distance and avoidance. You've moved on. And that's what makes this moment so critical. They now realize that it's not about whether or not you'll take them back. It's about whether or not they're ready to be the person you need them to be. Ultimately, this is their last chance to change, to show you they've learned from their mistakes, to prove that they can be the kind of partner you deserve. If they're willing to take that step, they might be able to rebuild the connection, to earn your trust and love again. But if they choose to remain stagnant in their avoidance, to keep running from their emotions, they'll lose you for good. It's the moment of truth, and the decision is theirs to make. And just like that, we've reached the turning point. Your avoidant ex is now faced with the ultimate decision: act or let you go forever. Whether they choose vulnerability or continue hiding behind their walls will determine the fate of this relationship. But one thing is certain: the ball is in their court, and time is running out. If you found this video helpful and eye-opening, don't forget to hit that like button. Share it with anyone who needs to hear this, and subscribe for more. Make sure to turn on notifications so you don't miss the next episode in Volume 4. We're diving even deeper into this journey, and trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. In the next episode, we're going to uncover something even more intense. What happens after 30 days of no contact with your avoidant ex? Does the silence break them? Do they finally come back, or do they move on for good? Get ready for a deep dive into the psychological effects of no contact and how it shifts the dynamic with your avoidant ex. Trust me, you'll want to be there. Until then, remember, your peace, your growth, and your boundaries are everything. Keep focusing on what matters most: you